Hi, how are you?
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. You
Nervous.
can hear me okay? Oh my gosh, no, don't be nervous. Don't be nervous. Don't worry. Well, thank you so much for joining me. We're still getting all the everything ironed out on how this is gonna work. So we're figuring it out, literally just interview by interview. All right, so we can go ahead and get started. So I did get a little bit of the rundown. Your son is in prison, and both of your sons struggled with addiction as well. Give me your perspective and your elevator pitch, pretty much.
Okay. Well, I for me it always starts with the addiction.
Mhm.
It's both my husband and myself have addiction in our families. So I had a sister-in-law who had been addicted for many years. I didn't even really know her. She lived in New York and she came down for the wedding. And anyhow, when she ended up coming down to stay, kind of being tricked to come down, she was tricked to going into rehab, which she's still the and I know there's more, but the only person I ever met that honestly got clean and stayed clean her first time became an RN and basically saved her nephew more than once. Her and her husband, they were very big into NA. And when our one son started using, he went in head first. I mean, 13 years old, he was full blown addict. Not the typical what you always hear on TV, separated parents. No,
Right.
wasn't the situation. Dad's a firefighter. I had a company, but left it to kind of watch with him.
Mhm.
But we started, I guess, the first time that we realized there were real problems. He was probably 13. He ended up in drug court. We just did everything. Okay. You go to the counseling, the drug counseling. And as he kept growing, he just got worse. He'd
Yeah.
get 6 months clean, a year clean. He's now got quite a few years clean
Mhm.
and doing well, but it was hit miss. It was at a point at one time where he was living in North Carolina as an adult and ended up on the streets. It's hard to say, it's a strange thing to say, but I had in my head, I had mourned his death. I don't know if that makes sense, but we'd gone back and forth so many times and he had overdosed so many times. There were times I found him in his car that he was completely unconscious, calling rescue. There were times I would find him anywhere. And this was even before the Narcan, I'm
Mhm.
talking. He would just take whatever. Didn't
Yeah.
matter. There was nothing. There was no it was funny. A kid who was scared to death of getting needles as a kid, it would take three people to hold him down to give him a shot.
Mhm.
And he started just giving him shots like crazy, you know.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where life started in our house with
Yeah.
the addiction and the rehabs and the he tried. He really tried.
Mhm.
It's not the life he wanted. Very smart, 149 IQ.
Wow.
Was in and out of jail, but never did anything that put him into prison.
Mhm.
Everything he did was himself.
Mhm.
He'd get caught, he'd just get busted. He played music, he was very good with music, and he'd go down to the beach and play for people to throw coins just so he could buy the drugs.
Mhm.
Luckily, today he's good, but did the whole whatever is called in school where you're, with the drug thing. And oh, he loved the teacher and he did great. He got an A,
Mhm.
you know. Ended up, I guess, after North Carolina, we got him down here. A friend found him on the street. He was in and out of NA meetings constantly. They got him on a bus and sent him here, and he couldn't get into the rehab until New Year's Day. New Year's Eve, he overdosed in our house. I thought he was kidding around. I was heard him making these noises. This was with fentanyl. He had started shooting fentanyl. I went into his bedroom, and when I pushed him and I said, "Stop it," he just fell over. And I ran and got my husband, and he got him CPR, and his wife was out on the deck. She was loaded too. But she had the Narcan, which we had never dealt with before. She went in. with my husband while I called 911 and they ended up taking him to the hospital. The doctor came out and he said that my son had told him they had a bed for him the next morning to go into a rehab. And he looked at me and he said, he needs the rehab more than he needs me. It actually, so far, and I will knock on wood, it worked. They've got their family together. They're doing great. But it's a daily thing. My
Of course.
sister-in-law, yeah, when she went through it, I remember she was clean for years. She went to medical school, became a nurse. And I can remember going to my mother-in-law one day and saying, how long does it take before you can actually go to bed at night and wake up in the morning and not have your first thought be, are they okay? And she said, it never goes away. And it doesn't. It never goes away. I'm proud of them. They've worked hard.
Yeah.
They have a beautiful family. But then in the meantime, my younger son, there's 7 years between them. I never thought he would start because when he was younger, dad would be at the fire department and his older brother would take off. I would have to be searching for him. So I'd have to be, I'm sorry, my husband's turning
No,
on
it's
the air
okay.
conditioner, but I would have to be searching for him, and my younger son would be with me. And that's how he would spend his time. Or when we would get Eric into meetings, and we'd have to have him at night at meetings, my younger son and I, on the nights that my husband was on duty, we would be sitting in the van eating our McDonald's dinner while his brother, he was in high school and playing football. And the next thing we knew, he was using, and it was just one issue after another. He different from his brother got into real trouble. He
Mhm.
was stealing from people, big kid, so it wasn't hard to pick him out when you'd
Yeah.
see him. He ended up going into prison at 18 and he was sentenced to 3 years. And our prison system is the worst place to put somebody who's an addict. They don't tell you anything. My son came home from prison at the age of 21, and he never told us anything that was going on in prison. We thought he's safe.
Mhm.
He's safe, you know, he's not on the streets. We're not going to get the call. We did not know that he was actually increasing his drug habit. He was also suffering with PTSD, which I should have known. The first morning he was home, he was in his bedroom, and I was sitting out on the deck waiting to see him. He wasn't coming out, and I knocked on his bedroom door and opened the door. And he was completely dressed and his bed was made and he was sitting on the end of his bed. And I said, honey, why aren't you coming out? And he looked at me and said, I was waiting for somebody to tell me I could. Nobody teaches parents what to look for and how to help your child when they come home from prison. And we thought he was good. 5 months later, he had relapsed, broke into a house with somebody, and he is considered a habitual felon. So he's doing a 30-year sentence. My son will be in his 50s when he gets out of prison. He spent most of his 20s in prison. He'll be 35 on New Year's Eve. And we just hope we are still around. I think it helps to keep his brother clean because he
Mhm.
knows he's the only one going to be here for him. I've done a lot with the prison thing, worked a lot on trying to change that.
Yeah.
My belief is if we took Florida's prison system and we took 2/3 of our prisons, took 1/3 and turned them into rehabs, and another third and turned them into mental health facilities,
Mhm.
we'd only need 1/3 of the prisons, and they would have a very small wing that would be long term.
Yeah.
Okay, but we don't do that. We don't really help. It's an issue I've had with people a lot when it comes to rehabs, that I do agree a person has to want to be clean
Mhm.
to get clean. But I also believe sometimes a person has to be locked up to get straight, to
Yeah.
know they want to be clean. It's a bad situation, and we have people that either want to go one way or the other. You should be in the middle. There is a middle. I think what happens with second chances with Angie's programs, I think that's great. You're not going to save everybody, but if you save one child from getting down this road, I can't tell you how many people we've lost. Friends of my sons, both of them, my friends' children. My lawn guy called me on Mother's Day a few years back. His son was 16, told me they found him. He had overdosed. Everybody, this affects everybody. I don't care if you're raised on the streets or if you're in a mansion. I really don't care. It doesn't matter. My son had been Baker acted twice. And I remember the first time they wanted me to sign papers to allow the doctor to keep him drugged up. And I was like, no.
Yeah.
I mean, we're here because of drugs.
Right.
And he was still underage, so I could control that. Then the next time I remember calling to see how he was doing, and the nurse, and she said, "Oh, he's just such a nice young man. He's made good friends with our pharmacist and he's out helping to hand out meds." And I thought I was going to explode.
Yeah.
I mean, these were the people that I was told to help my son. They had less knowledge about it than I did. That's about where we are.
Really do agree with a lot of the things that you said. If we even change small things about the prison system, how different these outcomes could be, where it would be less
Yeah.
reoffending, less relapse. That I think is the difficult part. Is very easy to act like it doesn't exist when it doesn't affect you. It's very easy to push that out into a different part of the world that is in some separate bubble that you're not paying attention to. I work in treatment as well. I've seen adults, kids, families torn apart over things like this. And it's very visible if someone would have just done something different, how different the outcome could have been. I think you have a very good outlook on the situation with everything that you've been through. And it's sad. How many kids' lives could have turned out differently if someone would have stepped in the right way?
And that's what you're saying, in the right way. And trying to make people understand it could be your kid tomorrow. And you get the people, oh no, no, I know what my child, I can remember thinking, I'll know when my kid's getting high.
Mm-hmm.
I'll know what they're doing. Yeah, you
You
don't know
can.
everything. No,
And
it's
it's also, you don't want to, in a way, if that makes sense. Of course, you don't want to think that your kid is using or think that
no.
your kid is going to overdose. Or, like you even said, of course, you don't want to report your kid to the police.
Yeah,
Yeah.
now you have no control.
That's also the problem with a lot of rehab that I see today is they are so overworked in a way.
Yeah,
Staff are
yeah,
so spread thin that it is impossible for anyone to be able to get individualized care, have someone pay attention to them, their quirks, their personality, like what they
yeah.
struggle with, where they come from. Things need to change, to be honest with you. And it's your story is very telling how aware you are of that and how aware other people need to be of it.
It's sad. And what you say about the rehabs, that's our same problems in the prisons.
Of course.
We're so understaffed that they're taking anybody. And that's not a job that just anybody can do.
Exactly.
And that is a job that's going to tear people down. The employees need as much help as the residents. It's not so. I always said it with rescue with my husband. I would say they have to kind of block certain things out because they see such horror so often, with accidents. And it's hard sometimes as a mom whose son has been beaten. But I do believe that many of the employees have to block things out themselves because they're not in there with a bunch of angels. Even my son will say, I wouldn't put up with that, Mom. I wouldn't let them do that to me. We went in one time, we were in one of the facilities, my husband and I, to visit. There was this young kid, and Ryan was in solitary. So when I was able, our visit was a non-contact, but I could buy him stuff, but they had to check it all, and then they took it to him during our visit. And I remember the kid that came up to look at the young kid, and I looked at him and I said, "You're new, aren't you?" And he said, "Yes, ma'am, I am." And I said, "Well, it's been nice meeting you. I don't think I'll ever see you again." And I didn't because he was nice. I would never want that job for my child. How do you keep people that care? How do you have people who don't look at them like an animal? If your son starts using and takes some of these drugs, and the next thing he's throwing himself on the ground, spitting and all over, how does that employee not completely lose any type of a respect?
Yeah.
Unless they have training.
Happens.
You can't take an 18-year-old kid off the street and expect them to be able to handle this and keep my son alive. You have to keep my son alive from everybody else in there
Mhm.
and from himself sometimes.
I like what you said about how do you not look at them like animals
Yeah.
almost. And I think that it's so unfortunate that there is such a lack of empathy. I could never do the job, but I, working in treatment and seeing the things I have seen, I have never seen anyone that I've worked with as any less than me. I saw them as my equal. We're all
Yeah.
human beings that have reasonings for the way that we have. One, yes, there needs to be training. It more way more intensive training than what it takes. I also think that there needs to be empathy. Life is so void of that you see these people and you see them for their actions. It takes a lot to look outside of somebody's actions and the bad things that they've done and still be able to see them as a person. And that's why I like what you said about seeing them as animals. And it's awful that I do hear a lot of the time that people in prison, people with drug addictions are dirty or they're, like you said, animals or they're below us or they deserve less than people who aren't drug addicts. And I don't believe that.
I try to talk to a lot of moms from the prison. Been doing this now for 17 years. So I do try to talk to them and especially if they're new to the prison. But it's really hard when they know their child has relapsed and started
Mm-hmm.
using. Because again, as a mom, and I'm a control freak. When you take my control away, because I don't even know who I can talk to help my son,
Mm-hmm.
because no, I don't want him beaten up. You can't just, oh, let me call the warden. Okay.
Right.
Doesn't work that way. So I try to, as much as possible, talk with other moms. Recently had a friend whose son was doing life, should never have been doing life, had drug problems,
Yeah.
just like my son, and was killed in there. And it wasn't even the drugs. He had been clean a couple of weeks now, which is probably somebody said something. Maybe he
Yeah.
wasn't buying from his supplier, so they got angry. I don't know, but this is what you deal with. I have another friend. She's had to block her son's calls because people keep calling her and telling her they're going to kill her son if she don't send them money and stuff. So she's
Mm-hmm.
had to block them. How do we do this and not have somebody to help us that can be on the inside to help us? It's a hard situation. It's people just don't get it if they're not there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy for them if they're not there, but there's more of us than people realize, I
Yeah.
think. I tell my story to everybody. I always make a joke. You can't stand behind me in line at Publix and not hear about Florida's prison system. But it's just I feel like people need to know because
People
people
do.
don't know. Most people feel the way I felt and my husband felt when our son first went in. Oh, he's away from the drugs.
Mm,
He's gonna get clean. He's gonna good. This is the best. Yeah, no. Doesn't
yeah.
work that way.
Right.
So
And
anyway,
that's unfortunate. You think that they're safe there. That's, I think, one of the hardest things I can imagine to come to terms with is realizing that they're not as safe as you thought this would be a good thing. So it's
yeah.
tough. I kind of want to talk about that and what it was like when you did find out his sentence. You said it was 30 years, correct?
Yeah.
What was that like for you? Because I know you also had some worries about still being around when he got out.
When he had been in earlier, I was trying to find things. That's like people were just starting with their computers really
Mm-hmm.
to do. As a matter of fact, when he first went away, MySpace was the thing people went on. Facebook didn't
Really?
even exist. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't. I
Which
think
is a
I don't even think I was born yet when MySpace was out.
that was a funny story when we picked him up. He wanted to use my phone to get on MySpace, and I had to be like, baby, there is no such thing anymore. It's
Oh
gone.
no.
And I don't know. You have to bring them clothes when they're coming home. And I don't know birds or mean birds or whatever. So I had got him one of those t-shirts with the big mean birds, whatever, to get dressed to bring him home.
Yeah.
And when he came out, he had on old t-shirt and he handed me back the shirt. He said, Mom, I'm not wearing this. I'm not a child. He was 21 years old. I was like, teenage, everybody
Yeah.
wears this.
Right.
It was hard. When we picked him up after 3 years, we thought life was starting over. And again, he had never really told us what had gone on in
Yeah.
the facilities. I later found out he had been put in for the 3 years from 18 to 21 what they called a youthful offender camp. And it went from 18 to 25 years. And anybody doing more time than that would then be moved what they
Mhm.
considered the adult camp. My son is big. He's a big boy. He's about 6'4". He played football in high school.
Mhm.
He's a big boy. Didn't know any better. Come to find out later on from a woman I met who had retired as a guard at the facility he was in. The facility he was in, they called it a gladiator camp, and they would make the residents fight each other, and they would take bets on who was winning. And if you didn't fight, you weren't going to eat. Of course, my son never told me any of this,
Yeah.
he kept all of this to himself, and he would get pulled out a lot to fight because of
Mhm.
his size and his strength. And it was hard. It
Yeah.
was hard because they were betting. And so you couldn't just say no
Right.
because you would get beaten. You wouldn't eat. But we didn't know any of that. So when he came home, first couple of weeks, I took him, bought him all new clothes. We went and got his ID and got everything set up. He got a job. We gave him my husband's old car, got him all set up. He didn't know it, but I had put a tracker on his phone. So every time I'd say, so did you go somewhere after work? And I'd see what the answer would be. And he'd either go, yeah, I went by so and so. And I knew where he was because I
Yeah.
had been tracking him.
Mhm.
So after a few months of him telling me, okay, everything was good, him and his boss started dating.
Mhm.
And she was really nice. And she had a little boy, and they did his birthday party. And we thought life was good for him. He was going to make it. And when it happened and everything, I got a phone call from a neighbor. The police had my son down the road. They had stopped his car, and they had all these trucks surrounding him, police truck, and had him on the road. And I just went ballistic. At one point, when they took off with him, I got in my truck and thought about ramming them. I had just completely lost control of where my brain was. My husband, who never missed work, couldn't go to work.
Mhm.
We couldn't get out of bed. We couldn't stop crying. We didn't know what to do. And somebody that he worked with gave us the name of somebody to go talk to, counselor, which I guess the man would have been fine, except when I walked in, it seemed the man, all his children were police officers and their pictures were all over his office, which I couldn't get comfortable.
Yeah.
I'm
That's understandable.
It took me a long time. Like, he didn't want us coming to court, and he ended up pleading guilty. And he only pled guilty, though, because I found out a lot of things later. But attorney we had hired wouldn't talk to us. He kept saying, I'm not your lawyer. I can't tell you. I'm Ryan's lawyer. Well, of course, Ryan couldn't talk to us either because everything he says is recorded in the county jail. So he's told not to talk. Came down to it. The lawyer said, you need to convince him to take the deal. It's 30 years, but he's got to take the deal. And he kept saying, no, I'm not going to take the deal because I didn't do what I'm being accused of, and blah, blah, blah. And his father and I said, we're not paying the lawyer any more money. So either you take the deal or you're on your own through this. I wish I had never done it, but because it took me again, I couldn't sit and read what was going on. Nothing was going to stay in my head. Wasn't going to get past that barrier. He got his sentence, 30 years. I went to the county jail after they shipped him out to prison to pick up his clothes and stuff they had. And the officer, you have to give them your ID. And I
Mhm.
gave the man my ID, and he looked at me and he said, this picture is you? And I said, yes. And he says, well, what happened? I said, you people sentenced my son to 30 years in prison. That's what happened. Didn't say another word. He sent a woman out to sit with me while they gathered my stuff. It took a while. And I found a thing on Facebook finally, Christian women whose husbands are in prison or something. That was the
Mhm.
only thing I could find in Florida. So I heard about a meeting going on up in Tallahassee, and they were going to try to stop us from having in-person visits.
Mhm.
So I went and I got up and I spoke, and I realized I have a voice. So my voice went everywhere I went. And that's when I started the standing in lines and explaining Florida prisons don't have any air conditioning. Florida prisons, oh, they say on their website, drug treatment, no such thing.
Mhm.
And I started doing that. and I started going to different, speaking to different politicians. But my belief has always been got to be open with the public, because if the public doesn't know what's happening, which most don't, lost some friends because I'd get on Facebook. My son's picture is on my Facebook with a
Mhm.
countdown of how long he's got. And if you don't like me for it, I can't help you. But if you end up with a problem, you will probably call me because you don't know who to talk to. I try to say, especially a 30-year sentence, watching my son spend his life in prison. I mean, he never even, because his girlfriend, of course, left him. So he never even had the opportunity to have a mate, have somebody who loved him, that he wanted to have children. He loved kids. I try to tell people it's like a death. It took me a long time to be able to sit in a restaurant and see a young couple enjoying one another, because my son won't have that. So it's like he's always 18. And realistically, they really don't grow mature wise that much in prison. There's a lot of things that he's still 18. There was a woman one time who was seeing him, and she was a little older than him. And I remember she called me one day and she said she would go visit him. I was so happy that somebody besides his father and I were visiting him. She called me though and she said, I don't know what to do with Ryan. He still writes to all these young girls from school. I said, honey, you got to understand, those are the only people he knows. So if these girls and the boys are writing to him,
Mhm.
those are his friends. They're going to be gone soon, because as they grow and have families and get busy, and they did.
Yeah.
Maybe once a year he'll get a card from one. But I tried to explain it to her that this is all he knows. These are his friends, they're from school. It's like my son has passed, but nobody grieves with me. I hear, well, I guess he deserves it. I will tell you, my son deserved to go into prison, did not deserve 30 years, did not deserve to lose his entire life for what he did. He didn't send anybody to the hospital. Okay. He's robbing people to supply his drug habit. He needed help. Instead, he will basically, if he comes out of there alive, he will be 50 years old and walk out a man who has no idea what life is like. Has no idea, because at 18, you can't know what life is like at 50. And I've met a lot of these people. I've got a friend who had 3 life sentences. He did over 30 years in Florida's prisons. And he invited me one time to meetings he was doing. Almost everybody, it's drugs, including him. So many of them. Their sentences were drug related. But he got out. He was back in the day when we had parole, which we don't have anymore in Florida.
Mhm.
He had been paroled. He started meetings for people who either had a loved one in prison or people coming out of prison to have a place to go. He's on to other things now. He started a reentry house, and he's working real hard to get parole reinstated. People don't get it. My best girlfriend I've known from birth, her and I went to have lunch the other day, and we're getting ready to move. So her and I went
Mhm.
and had lunch. We were talking, and she confided in me that she said, when Ryan first went to prison, I was so mad at you. And I said, why? I don't. And she said, because you gave up your whole life. You went into a shell, and then all you did was prison. She said, but now I get it. So that's what it is. Like my son, I can't call my son to see if he's okay. I have to wait for his one call to call me. His birthday is New Year's Eve. I can't buy him a birthday present. So I can still have a little relationship with him. It's like his grandmother died, his aunt died, his grandfather died, and his uncle recently died. And all of this we have to do on the phone and tell him. And it's hard. It's just hard. I can't hug my son. I can't hug him and say it's going to be okay. I want him to hug me right now. My brother just passed. I want him to hug me. I do this thing with what's going on now with the illegals being here and everybody going, oh, you're separating families and you're doing,
Mhm.
but nobody does this for my son. Nobody seems to understand it. There are thousands of us here because they're not going to get the media attention. So they don't. Nobody realizes when I hear somebody and I go, really? My son did a year and a half in solitary confinement. Oh, he must deserve it. Okay. So it's weird. It's hard. It's my husband and I have stayed together through it. I don't know. I know so many women seem to be managing to do this on their own, and I don't know how, but they do. And they're there for their kids. They're always there, or their husbands or boyfriends, and I don't know if I could do it for a husband or a boyfriend.
Mhm.
I'll be honest. I just don't. Hope I could.
Yeah, but
I really
it's
hope I could.
difficult. It's a difficult
Yeah.
position to be in, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. My son is my son. You can't
Right.
divorce your son. You can't, you know.
Exactly. Nothing you can do.
He's mine, which
Yeah.
also gives me partial. I raised him. What did
Yeah.
I do? I got over the guilt on both of them.
Yeah.
I don't really have guilt, but they are my babies and will always be my babies no matter what happens in this world. I just pray that they're able to make life work because something makes you start using, and I think you have to find it. So far, again, I'll knock on wood. My older son seems to have it together, but he has to call me every day.
Yeah.
He is 41 years old and he has to call me every day.
Listen, I mean, like you said, I feel I can only imagine that feeling of just always what's going on, what's going on, are they okay? I can't imagine that will ever go away. So yes, he should call you every day until he is old and wrinkly.
No, I'll be gone. So
He
I'll
should
say,
call
come
you
visit
every
my
single
my grave site every day. Come
every
visit me.
day, right? You need to know. I know we talked about you've had a few recent deaths. On those days where things are a little bit more difficult and more heavy, how do you feel like you get through those days without them?
Well, again, I'm lucky that I have my husband. Honest, there are days when I've sat here and thought, I wish I could use something.
Yeah.
No, I we did when my husband and I were first coming out of our shell. My doctor gave me a prescription for something that was supposed to help me, and I took it a few times. And she will once a year give me my prescription.
Mhm.
I haven't taken it in 3 years now, four
Yeah.
years at all. I remember I used to take a pill on Christmas, on his birthday, on
Mhm.
Mother's Day, on my birthday, but I haven't taken one in years now. But there are times that I don't feel like getting out of bed and I make
Yeah.
myself get out of bed. For a long time, I had lots of dogs and stuff. I fostered dogs,
That's
and
like me.
now we're
It's a
down to
zoo
my
in here.
cat.
I have a zoo.
They help, but I will still have my moments. There
Of
have been the
course.
really bad ones. It's like now while we're packing, I'm going through and finding pictures. And I find pictures of both my boys and as children, being at Disney. At a time when as a mom, you just think this is perfect. Nobody thinks that you're going to be the person either burying your child or visiting your child in prison. And first couple of years when Ryan was away, I always tell people don't do this because you get in line to go do your visit. And I can remember I wouldn't talk to anybody there.
Mhm.
And my husband and I would be standing there, and all I could think was, we just don't belong here. We aren't like these people. Well, we are those people. Everybody has their story. I would say 99% of those people don't belong there either. There's a few.
Yeah. But most
but
of
um
them.
but no, they just don't. And it's funny. I write to over 300 inmates.
Oh, really?
I send them birthday cards and
How
Christmas
did you get
cards.
started with doing that?
I had started with my son. We decided to make a Facebook page for prison stuff, which I don't do anymore. But through that, I started writing to some of the guys. They would write to me. He'd give them
Hmm.
my address and they'd write. It ended up so this one gives it to that one and that one gives it to this one. I have at any time, there's anywhere between 280 and 320 people on my list. And they'll get birthday cards and Christmas cards.
Oh, that's awesome.
And whenever there's a new law, something, I try to write to let them know.
Yeah.
I forgot where I was going with that.
We got distracted on the birthday cards. I kind of interjected there because I wanted to know about that. You were talking about how 99% of the people don't belong here. There's some that do. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. First off, the amount of absolute artists that are in our
Mhm.
prison is unbelievable.
Oh, yeah.
Their artwork is just phenomenal.
Yeah.
I used to have file cabinets and file cabinets and file cabinets because I kept everything they sent. And now that I'm moving, I've had to get rid of most of it. Downsizing. This morning I opened up my email and one of the guys, and well, Miss Vicki, you never cease to amaze me. You remembered my birthday. Thank you for the
Oh.
smile. It's a little thing, but when you stop and think, and I always call them by their names because inside they're inmate number blah, 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 blah.
Right.
No, no, it's Joe and Jack and Sam and
Hmm.
Heidi and Kathy, and they write back. Most of them, not all. Sometimes they only write back if they want to ask me, hey,
Yeah.
can you call my girlfriend and tell her.
I enjoy that you take such an active role and you've taken your situation and somehow made yourself a light to other people too. I think you've turned what has happened and the not so pretty things. And I think that you turned that and found a way to be a bright light in other people's, and not even just your son, other people who may be in his same position who maybe don't have someone like you to call or to get a
Well,
birthday card
it's
from.
a
So
selfish because my idea is if I do this when I'm gone, somebody will write to my
yeah,
son.
yeah. And of course, you want to think what you give to the world will come back. I don't think that that makes you selfish. I mean, I think that makes you a mother. And at the end of the day, you still found a way to be great for other people as well through
Thank
everything
you.
you've gone through. And I agree with so many of your viewpoints on everything. Prison system, rehab, just your viewpoints in general, I think are great. I really enjoyed talking to you. I'm not sure if there's any more that you want to add.
No, I thank you for what you're doing. You said you work in rehab and
I do. Yes,
yeah.
I absolutely love it.
That's my sister-in-law, her husband at the time. We lost her because of her addiction, but it was because
Mhm.
she had gotten hepatitis and lived for years with it, but had a transplant, led to cancer.
Mhm.
But I always say she saved more lives than any doctor out there
Yeah, right.
because she would travel all over and speak at NA meetings. She would meet people because she worked once she got her RN, she worked in the rehab in intake. There was always people living in their house that needed a place to stay, a ride to a meeting, and somebody to just sit and talk to them. She was an angel on earth. And that's the thing. She was a person that people looked down on because she was an addict on the
Right.
street. My other friend, John, who's out there trying to help people get ready to come into the world, he had 3 life sentences. People would say, oh, why is he out? Because he's saving people. And
Yeah.
and people don't realize when he helps or my sister-in-law helps an addict or somebody coming home, that could be your neighbor. They're running into people all day long. Okay. You don't realize the people you're seeing, what
Yeah,
they've been through.
exactly.
So it's nice to know that they had some humanity and were treated good by
Hmm.
people because being squashed on the ground constantly isn't going to make them a good neighbor. And people just need to realize that. I think it's that difficult and that simple all at once.
Exactly. It is extremely difficult and extremely simple all at one time. I totally agree with that.
So thank you for what you do
Of
because
course.
definitely need it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
You
it's
got
where my
lots of
heart is.
moms thanking you.
I'm glad. I'm glad that I could. That's important to me too. And my passion, my heart is with kids, and that's
Yeah,
eventually where I want my career to go. I mean, when I
that's
found
hard.
Angie, I was like, "Me and you, girl.
Yeah,
What can we do?" So it's been awesome.
yeah.
Truly working with her and everything
She's
she's been
amazing.
through, learning her story. And we
Yeah,
were just in Bartow the last two
yeah.
weekends at George Harris doing Future Fuel. This is truly where my passion is. So I mean, I work full time. This is another full time job on top of that. I'm a full time student. I don't see it as work. I love talking to other people and hearing your stories. I'm sitting here face to face with you and you're telling me about things that you've gone through that maybe I would have had no idea about if I would have read it, seen it on social media. Jails don't have air conditioning. If I would have seen that on social, you know what I'm saying? It's so
Yeah.
different when you're speaking to someone who has an original individual story. It's just such a different experience than what I'm used to. So I love doing this and I love meeting all of you guys and all of Angie's community. So it's awesome. I,
Yeah.
I enjoy it.
Angie, she's amazing. When we met, Bree was beautiful. One of the people I used to write to when she was
She's
out on
the
she
driving
got
force.
out And when she was working at Denny's, and my husband and I would go have dinner there once in a while.
Oh, that's awesome.
I thank you. I thank you for
Yeah.
everything. And thank you
Thank
for
you
this,
for
what you're doing.
Yeah, thank you for meeting with me, and I'm glad we got to talk, and I'm glad I got to meet you as well.
You too. You
And
too.
I'm sure we'll speak again soon. I'm sure we
Yep.
will cross paths.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, it's like,
Thanks.
of course. Bye. You have a great rest of your night.
You too. Bye bye.
Bye.
I don't know how to do this now.